We're live on YouTube. Welcome to the show. I am Rich Lieberman. I talk about everything. I try to be as pointed, as pertinent as possible. Sometimes it works. Most of the time it works. Sometimes it doesn't. But we're here on a Monday, and I've been doing a lot of investigating and going over some loose ends. Now, this is a beauty. This what I'm about to talk to you about is a beauty. Unfortunately, and I'm chuckling. You'll get why I'm chuckling in a second because I'm about to propose something with a little bit of background and make a larger point. So just bear with me. So I kind of do two shows now. I do a national YouTube show and I talk about the culture and I talk about media and I talk about a whole bunch of things. Ron Owens, Laura Owens, that whole conflagration and all that. Now I'm going to talk a more of a local Bay Area, San Francisco centric situation that deals with sports radio. Now, folks, this just in. There is no sports radio in San Francisco. It's a bunch of incompetent morons. I'm being very kind. Who don't know radio. Who, if it were not for the 49ers and the Giants and the Warriors, would have nothing to talk about. Would be basically a bunch of Uber drivers and wannabes and posers who wouldn't know the business if it hit them in the face. They're just incompetent and they don't know anything. There's a few out there, and I say a few air talents that have the ways and means to be relevant, to draw some attention, not a lot, but just enough to survive. And a lot of these Uber drivers, they go to San Francisco radio stations, and because they lack any talent and they need bodies, they hire these Uber drivers. And they're better Uber drivers than they are radio air people, but that's another story. So, look, as you may know, or some of you may not know, terrestrial radio is in the dumps. It's in the abyss. It's kind of just like all other aspects of terrestrial radio, only in other cities, terrestrial radio, pretty much talk radio and sports talk radio, they still survive. Why? Because they have talent, because they know what they're doing, and they know how to attract an audience, and they know how to have talent, have real conversations, and not rely upon gimmicks, and not have one of their chief talents kiss the ass, literally and figuratively, of sports executives who work for the team. They still have the mighty, albeit lengthy. It's not lengthy. It's just the opposite. Forgive me, as I have an eye that was kind of itching. They don't have lengthy amounts of resumes, but they get the basics. And they know how to maintain an audience, if not enhance an audience. So locally, San Francisco has got Drek times Drek. One has less Drek than the other. There is the mainstay KNBR, which used to be relevant, which used to be a real radio station. And they had real talent like Barbieri, Ralph, and Radnich, Gary Radnich, even though he phoned it in at the last few months before they told him to get lost. And people like that. And Pete Franklin, the king of sports talk radio. But then KNBR lost it. It's been systematic, but they lost it. And you have 95.7 FM The Game, which is the FM alternative, and I do mean alternative, to KNBR. Now, 95.7 The Game has got a little bit of a weak signal, subpar talent, but at least the subpar talent that they have is far more superior, and it's not saying a lot, than KNBR's mishmash of week-old kumquat air talent and Uber drivers and engineers and producers that they have to schlep from the off the air dungeon into the on air so they can be relevant and use talent because they have no talent whatsoever. KNBR is a cesspool of mediocrity, and I'm being kind. Mediocrity at least means you're minimum. KNBR has a morning show with a complete and utter asshole named Brian Murphy, who's disgusting, who lies, who thinks we give a shit about his golf game and the fact that he puts his nose up Larry Bear's ass, which he does. And then he kisses the ass of Marty Lurie because he thinks Marty Lurie can get him places. Marty hasn't. And Brian Murphy is basically what he is, a corporate shill who does commercials because corporate likes him. Corporate America loves Brian Murphy because he doesn't say anything the least offensive, and he tears on and he terrorizes interns who don't give him joy, who don't put up with his assholeness. I have exposed Brian Murphy many a times and will even more so in coming broadcasts, God willing. But that's enough about Brian Murphy. Both stations have basically nothing going on. They rely on whatever there is of sports talk radio, the little bit of fans. And these are not good demographics. These are old white guys that drive trucks, that smoke cigarettes, that are in their mid-70s. In the case of KNBR, that's their demo. Nobody listens to KNBR. Their ratings, have you seen them? They're woo, woo. And then you have 95.7 The Game. Now, their demographics are a little better because they have hired more creative talent. They were the first to devise streaming and YouTube and Twitch to get somewhat of a meager audience, but at least they held on to the little meager audience that they have. And they're younger. Now, the few talent that these two stations have, it's minimal. It's the few. One guy on 95.7 The Game, a guy by the name of Joe Shasky, part of the Morning Roast. He's funny. He's only 42. That's not that old. He's cranky, pain in the ass, but he's a father. He's got a nice wife. They live in San Francisco. They know the area. They know the lay of the land. They know the geography. Shasky, funny. Not hilarious, but funny nonetheless. Knows football, knows baseball, has a modicum of intelligence about sports, and knows when to shut up and knows when to strike. Okay? Think about that for a second. Then you have 95.7 The Game. I mentioned about air talent. KNBR used to have a guy named Damon Bruce. Now, Damon is a very loathsome individual, an ass kisser when he needs to be, kind of like a politician. I can't stand him. I've had run-ins with him. He kisses ass. He met a wife who basically was a groupie who loved him for the fact that he could get her tickets to go see Giants games. They love. It was love at first sight. Love, 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 love. They produced a baby. It's an all-American story, folks. Now, guess what? I can separate two things. I can separate the fact that I can't stand Damon Bruce, like a lot of people. But I recognize talent. And while he's a pain in the ass, while he's an MFer, and while he can be downright dangerous to various, I don't mean literally dangerous, he's just kind of nutty. He's high-strung. He's sort of scary. Now that he's got a kid, that's kind of toned down a bit, but he's dying to work in the market. He's got a following. He's got a following, almost as big as mine. But Damon has scared off a lot of executives in San Francisco because he is quite loathsome. He is quite scary. But in terms of the fact of talent, which I've always recognized, I've said this many times, put him in a microphone or in front of a microphone. Let him do what he does. He can attract numbers. I've never ever said neither about that. He can attract an audience. And now he's got that element of people who want to watch a train wreck. But in this case, it's a good train wreck because it splinters off and it doesn't die out. It stays around the railroad track or wherever it crashes into. There's little pieces and parts and parcels and all that. And Damon, although he won't say this about me because he's kind of, he's married to his inner Damon, which is scary, which is egotistical, which is loathsome, all elements of the Damon Bruce stature. He dare not say anything positive about me because he's just hell-bent on past, shall we say, excuse me, it's hot outside. I'm getting this kind of wind, and it's a deep wind. Anyway, I need water. That's always good, right, folks? Get your water. Hey. Okay. Throat refreshed. Somewhat. Anyway, so I say, here's my thing. And I've heard this, but I can't nail it down. But I have heard it, and it makes a lot of sense. Shasky, part of the morning roast at 95.7 The Game, has been looking around. He doesn't feel as if they appreciate him at 95.7 The Game. And when I say he's looking around, he wants to continue to work in San Francisco radio, even though he's got money, the family money and all that, but he wants to work elsewhere. Well, there's only one other terrestrial radio station, and that's KNBR. Damon Bruce also is just on the bed, on the floor, dying to work. And Damon was let go about a year ago because they couldn't stand him. And they also wanted to get rid of him because he was making a few extra shekels. So they fired him and got rid of him. And now both of these individuals, one is working, the other one is not, save for some show on YouTube that gets about 50 people and all that. Now, here's my idea. Shasky and Bruce, Butcher Boy and his creator, would make a dynamite twosome. No, not that way. I don't mean it like that. I'm talking about two heterosexual guys on San Francisco radio that KNBR, if they had any gumption, if they had any creativity whatsoever, would blow out Dirty Work, that alleged program that gets virtually no listeners. It's from 2 to 6 in the afternoon. Blow those idiots out and bring in Damon Bruce and Joe Shasky. Call it the afternoon kabam or the PM meltdown, whatever you want to call it. Look, somebody with a boldness, I don't think that exists. It certainly doesn't exist at KNBR. This would involve somebody high atop the cumulus ladder, like a Gilbert. I think his name is Dennis Gilbert. He's in charge of the overall radio broadcasts, West Coast in Cumulus. I don't know his exact title, but something like that. Then there's the San Francisco market manager for Cumulus, a guy by the name of Larry Bloomhagen. Larry Bloomhagen. He would have the gusto, the juice to hire both Bruce and Joe Shasky. And you know what that would do? That would create a lot of buzz. That would bring in an immediate amount of audience to KNBR, which it sorely lacks. And it would give some airtime and some gusto and radio balls to a radio station that long ago lost its luster, and that's KNBR. Now, you might be thinking, well, Rich, where's the money going to come from and all that? Yeah, good question. Well, the money that they're paying now for these 3 breadcrumbs, Kobe Copes, Cope Copes, Copes, and Derek Papa, and then they pay some board operator named Thin Tim. Combined, they're all getting probably around the neighborhood of $200,000, 3 of them combined. Well, they could take that money, give 200 to Shasky, give 100 to Damon, or whatever. However, maybe they'd have to go get the spare parts slush fund and get some money out of that. The bottom line is this: you could bring in advertisers, you could bring in buzz, you could bring in something to which you don't have now. Now, I've talked this over with a lot of industry people, and they think, you know what, it makes too much sense. Common sense doesn't exactly have a headway in Bay Area radio, especially sports talk radio, because there is no sports talk radio. It's garbage. It's dreck. This would make sense on several fronts. And by the way, it would get an audience. And then you can get advertising. You could bring back the auto body shop that long ago left KNBR, and banks and furniture stores and what they call local commerce that used to be attached to sports radio, news talk radio. If you had 2 adequate, less than mediocre salespeople, you could sell this. Bruce and Shasky. It was none other than Bruce who thought Shasky, who called in to his show as a caller, a.k.a. Butcher Boy, who became so good and so talented, applied for a job at 95.7 The Game, and they hired him. They took a chance. He vaunted himself all the way up to the morning drive position. Now, they haven't had any great numbers. Shasky's looking around. Damon Bruce has been fired many a times, but not because he doesn't have any kind of following. He does. Now, if you could take the inner bullshit, the inner craziness, the inner out of Damon Bruce and put these 2 in front of a microphone and let them go at it, you'd have the dynamic there. You'd have very, very talented guys who could produce good radio, which in turn would produce ratings. Did I say ratings? It would blow away the competition, because at KNBR, they need help. And 95.7 The Game has little breadcrumbs. Speaking of little breadcrumbs on the radio now, it would actually cost less in terms of air talent than what is taking place now. Not to mention, it would give KNBR a needed kick in the tuchus to where they can have some degree of believability and creativity. Now, let me say something very clear, because this is going to get out. Let me repeat. I'm not a Damon Bruce fan, a personal fan. I think he's overrated. I think he's an asshole. I will always still think he's an asshole. But unlike Damon, I don't have grudges. I've long ago separated that. I would think outside the box. And if I truly thought that my product was going to be better and that my job would be enhanced by the addition of 2 radio people that I think that I can make into something that would help the company, not just short term, but long term, and better my overall product, then I would do it. And I know that's not how the world exists today. There's a lot of personal shit. There's a lot of people who have grudges against other people, even though they know that these people, these individuals, would help the bottom line. They don't take part in that thought process because their egos are too big. Their judgment is skewed by the fact that would admit that they did something for the bottom line, that they did something that would enhance the bottom line in any industry, not just radio. It could be anything. Personal grudges still exist. I am now, folks, a connoisseur. I listen, I observe, whether it's streaming sites, whether it's terrestrial radio, whether it's YouTube channels, whether it's the internet elements. I don't have any more grudges. I could still detest people. They could still detest me. But what I've learned is there are a lot of people that I detest, but I admire nonetheless their ability to be whomever they want to be, whether it's the radio, whether it's, I mentioned, the internet, television, streaming. I can see talent. Sometimes I'm right, sometimes I'm wrong, but I have no grudge anymore. There are people that don't think much of me, that can't stand me, but they watch, they respect me because I have a following now. People pay attention. I'm drawing a lot of viewers on YouTube because I represent what a lot of you admire about me. I'm using this phrase very, very, very objectively. You like the fact that I'm common sense and that I don't kiss ass, and I'm here because I have survived largely. Now, quite conversely, there are people that I love, that I think the world of, that I have had multiple thoughts and dreams about the fact that they're fantastic people, but they're not very good on the air, whether it's radio, whether it's television, whether it's streaming, whether it's whatever endeavor. And I have had to state quite significantly, not directly, that I can't say anything good about them. I can marvel at their ability to be nice. There's a lot of nice people out there. A lot of nice people, but they're not that very good. They're not talented. And there is a difference. You know, there are exceptions. There are some, not a lot, few people who are both talented and nice people, but it's rare. Okay. Now, one other thing too. I was voted People Magazine's 1990 sexiest man alive in a few regional magazine cities. I'm not going to name them because I don't want to. I want to protect the confidentiality. I was voted People Magazine's sexiest man alive. And I had to fight off lots of women, some men too, but mostly women, because I am a heterosexual, who wanted to date me, who wanted to enjoy me, who wanted me to tell them stories and read books and try to entertain them and all that. And I fought it off. Why? Because I have integrity, because I am a sensitive man. Am I a sensitive man? You are. I am, I said. But my point is, I am objective. I love people for the most part. I detest people, but I could still sing Debbie Boone songs. I could still think out loud. I could still love people. Because if you can't find the love you want, then bang the other woman. No, then love the one you're with. You have to be real. You have to keep it real. Keep it real. Make a deal. And you don't steal. And you got to be real. Now, I rhyme words. That's my latest thing. I do a lot of rhyming. And when I meet women that won't have anything to do with me, I still go up to them and talk and love, not literally, but figuratively. And I tell them. That's what I tell them. I don't even have to say anything. I just do this. And they get it. They get it. And that's when you know you've gotten it, when they get it and when they give you the signals after you do that. So back to what I was saying about Damon Bruce and Joe Shasky. Probably not going to happen because it would be too creative. It would be too it would be too obvious. It would draw a lot of attention. It would be a creative masterpiece. And Rich buried his ego. I don't have an ego. I told you. I observe now. I watch. I look. I listen. I do this. I go up to women and talk to them and tell them that they, whatever. So I am objective. As I said, Joe Shasky, Cranky, watchable, listenable. Damon Bruce, oh my God, what a complete and utter, okay, POS. But I'll tell you what, put them on the air, put a microphone behind them, and that's some good radio. All right, I'm going to be here later on this evening. We're going to do a live, kind of a Monday night after dark show. So if you watch this show now, it's kind of more of a San Francisco-centric type of a broadcast. And it's very hot in the Bay Area. It's getting hot in here. And don't take off all your clothes, but it's hot. We're in the beginning of a heat wave and all that. So I'll be back around 7 o'clock Pacific, 10 o'clock Eastern time. And we're going to do a variety show. We're just going to have a lot of fun here. I see a couple of people. You can't take on Damon Bruce like this. I just watched both of you. You can, okay, who is that? I don't know. All right. So I'm going to be back again around 7 o'clock Pacific time, 10 o'clock East Coast time, or thereabouts. Go to my social media on YouTube or on Twitter at Rich Lieberman or X, whatever the hell they call it now. And I'll make the announcement as to my actual time. Okay. Subscribe to my channel. I'll give you a free taco from Taco Bell. Yo quiero Taco Bell. If you become a subscriber, we'll make arrangements. And I'm going to get some water. And I'm going to go sunbathe in the nude. No, I'm not. Like me. No, subscribe to my channel. And I'll see you later on this hot Monday. It's mundane, but it's Monday.